First of all, what I want you to do is think of the best moment of your life. Picture it. And now I want you to go back. I want you to think of the worst moment of your life. Our lives ultimately consist of landmarks. The grand moments are the ones to stand out, the heights of emotions, the euphoria, as well as the depression. The university represents one of those life marks. It is a mixture of combustible emotions. There is fear, excitement, anticipation. For me, university was one of the most life-changing experiences. I remember my first day, sitting in my room, trying to work up the courage to face the realities that awaited me outside. I remember trudging up the stairs to the university building, sitting down in a chair, too nervous to lean back. I was an entity outside of myself, while the ticking of the clock was steadily marching forward like the beating of my heart. Finally, my name was called. There was another room, another chair, and my life, my sense of self, and my idea of the world are about to be changed forever. What can I do for you today? I think I am depressed. This was the first time that I openly admitted to suffering from a mental illness to another person. So this is my story about depression. But this is also my story about elation. For I believe that without sadness, there cannot be encompassing joy. Not only do I believe that pain is a necessary and inevitable part of our existence, but I also believe that it gives us a more fulfilling life. Accepting your own emotions and putting more emphasis on the emotions of others will be one of the most defining decisions of your life. Now, as we go through life, we have these landmarks. But as I have mentioned, most people don't live their lives like that. Minor ups and downs characterize the journey that remains for the most part steady. To fully explain my principles, we have to go back to the beginning. I was born and raised in a small town in rural Bavaria, and there wasn't much space for grand emotions. I was lucky enough to meet people through family travels that have inspired me to go beyond rationality and to follow my emotions and my sense of self. It is through these waves that I have been able to be an intern in a diving center in Crete, to being an English teacher in Thailand, and finally becoming a university student in England. None of these were emotions that anyone advised me to follow. Now, I do believe that we have to regulate our emotions, but I also believe we have forgotten how important they are. When I admitted to having depression, one of the worst fears of my entire existence had started to manifest itself. My father's depression had left a mark on the whole family and had evolved into my worst nightmare. It was a fear that I've been living with my whole life, and nothing has ever terrified me more than the fear of the sadness inside of me getting its claws into my soul and taking over my entire being. It was an emotion that had been demonized by my whole family, as well as close friends. So accepting myself as someone who was depressed was not also to accept my depression, but also to accept myself as someone outside of the perimeter of acceptable feelings that you should experience as a person. Because overexcitement, as well as sadness, are both emotions that are not very desirable in a person. Now, I do believe that depression is not a good emotion to feel on a constant basis. But for those of you who do not know anything about depression or have not experienced it, I want to try and briefly sum it up. Andrew Solomon once said in one of his famous TED Talks that it is not just sadness, it's much too much sadness at far too slight a cause. And elation has become something so far outside of your own sphere that its absence is a constant reminder of your own lack of self. See, when I told my colleague that I would be giving a TED talk about depression, his first reaction was to laugh at me. Because most of the time, I'm a very happy and energetic person, and I believe that it is precisely because I had these down moments, and because I know that I have a tendency to experience these devastating low points, that I'm able to live my life with so much more joy and gratitude. our emotions are what define us. They are what defines our character. Now, our depression is very common, and it is more common than we think it really is. It represents a counterpoint in life. It represents a point in your life where you do not find any will, and where you do not find anything that can keep you going. But it is precisely because of this moment that you can move on. Now, I want to stress that depression is more severe for some than it is for others, and it is not to be taken lightly. But what I want to say is that it is possible to rise from these moments more fulfilled and stronger. Allowing the sadness inside of me to become a part of myself has allowed me to create a better sense of direction for myself, and also develop greater understanding, empathy, and compassion for others. The first day at university was a horrible day for me, and the first friend I made at university was also the first person that I told I had been put on antidepressants. And after my confession, she never spoke to me again. If we take into consideration how closely our emotions are related to our character and how much they are an expression of who we are, and how much we have put a negative connotation on certain emotions, then it is not surprising that so many of us shy away from these encounters. After so many painful experiences, how can I still believe that experiencing these emotions is a good thing? As I've mentioned previously, most of us are just following a line. Our lives have minor ups and downs, but for the most part, they're steady. I'm fine, and you? Excess in any shape or form is a word with negative connotation. And I believe that it is precisely because of this that we have such a strong stigma in society against mental illness, because we have started to associate strong emotions with a flaw in character. As we go through life, we continually learn to control ourselves. We first learn to control our bladder, our hunger, and ultimately, we learn to control our emotions more or less successfully. While I do believe that this is a necessary process, I believe that we have forgotten that the one thing that causes so much trouble in the human species and in our personal lives is also the one thing that has caused so much greatness, and these are our emotions, our pain, as well as our joy. As we go through life, we follow these ups and downs, but we do not properly experience them. And I think that's where the stigma comes from. If I cannot accept myself, if I cannot accept the emotions that I am feeling, how could I ever conceive of another person in a loving way? As Carl Jung has said it, for if I am not whole, I must also have a dark side if I am to be whole. Now, for me, I have come across a lot of deep moments, dark moments, but they have also enabled me to come to my best moments. Now, experiencing these emotions is a necessary process, and we have to allow ourselves to experience them in their full range. My relationship at the time became victim of a similar fate because of a lack of understanding, and a lack of understanding why I would be so sad and why I would be so angry when I had no reason on the outside to feel this way. But it is in this that I found my counterpoint. For when my relationship ended, I had practically lost the last person that I could turn to. But it was also in that moment that I lost the last person to criticize the intensity of my emotions. And this is when I began to rebuild my identity, because I was no longer pressured by the outside world to cleanse myself of all this pain and all this sadness. And there was no more struggle to fight for acceptance. And it was my lowest moment, but it was also the moment that I decided to live every high or low to its fullest. It was the moment when I had reached the end, economically, physically, most importantly, psychologically and emotionally. But there is energy in everything that we feel. And it was in this moment that I believed that this critical low point had not only changed my perspective on life, but it had also changed me. It is only when we hit these low points that we are able to find something within ourselves that is greater than our fears, our doubts, and our frustrations. It is the moment when we are able to see our lives from a different perspective and find what it is that keeps us going. Well-meaning friends and family have previously advised me to leave university and to step away from this life completely. But I believe that purification is not the way. And that's why I kept going. The things that I believed would destroy me as a person were the things that allowed me to move further than ever before. The months following the final culmination of my depression were also the months of my ultimate elation, because they were the months where I packed my bags and moved to London, despite a lack of finance, friends, or any knowledge of the city. My previous flatmate advised me not to tell people about my previous depression, but I disagree. For the lowest point of my life is inseparable from my existence as a whole. While I do believe that we have to regulate our emotions to a certain extent and do let go of some of them, I believe that it is only when we fully immerse ourselves in the range of all of them that we can reach our full potential as human beings and as the person we were made to be. Now, to get back to my depression, it is a very grave condition. But I have come across people in my circle of friends that have been able to understand the depths of certain experiences and hence let their love for the affected be stronger than their doubts. I'm not saying follow your emotions regardless. Do not risk your life in a physical or emotional way, but allow them to create a more guiding sense of direction for you. Because if you do not pay these experiences their due, they will not only destroy you, but they will also destroy others along the way. I believe that almost everyone in this room has felt something at a certain point that they did not communicate to the other person. And some of us will regret this for the rest of our lives. Our emotions are ultimately an expression of our character, and they built it. London, more than any other place in the world, has taught me the value of character, precisely because it tends to overestimate money, power, and influence. And too often we let ourselves be judged by status rather than our character. Too often we seek that sort of prestige and that control over others more than we seek kindness, gratefulness, or empathy. And it is because of a steady decline in emotional involvement that more and more of us will be suffering from mental illness. If you label something like sadness or even overexcitement, if you label something bad, you take the individual experience out of it. Just because you're following a greater whole, it means that there is no more individual understanding for what happens along the way, and then finally no one will bear responsibility for anything. During my depression, sadness became the preconception of my whole existence. But I believe that everything we feel it for a reason, and that there is energy to be found. Having suffered from a mental illness has completely changed the person that I am today. I remember a friend of mine telling me that people who have suffered from mental illnesses will keep suffering from them throughout their lives, that they are less robust, that they are weak, and that they are less likely to be hired. Now this is my catalyst, and this is my declaration. I'm coming back, and I will be better and stronger because of it. I believe that mental illness has shaped the person that I am today, and that because of this experience, my life is more fulfilling. Mental illness, more than anything else, is an expression of the intensity of our feelings. And what we need to do is stop demonizing certain emotions and judging others for experiencing them. Because not allowing yourself to feel these things is what makes us sick. I believe that mental illness is more common than we actually think, and I believe that stigma is still strong, is much stronger than we actually think. Our emotions, more than anything else, are part of our identity, It is the reason why we choose the things we do. It is the reason why we aspire to a certain career. It is the reason why we choose a certain life. Our emotions build and shape our identity. And they are the ultimate expression of our character. And maybe there will come a time when instead of judging people for suffering too much from certain emotions, we will actually be able to stand by their side and support them through it. Thank you.